Good afternoon. I am calling to order the Planning Commission meeting. It is 4:30, Thursday, May 26, 2022. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the April 28th, 2022 meeting.
I'll offer a motion to approve as presented. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any additions, discussions, changes? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Before I open the public hearing portion of the meeting, I'm going to ask for city staff to do a brief explanation. We are beginning our new planning ordinance changes this monthly meeting, and we have some new forms, and so I'd like them to go over that for us, please.
Good evening, Commission members. Excuse me, John Nisley, planner with the City of New Ulm. Tonight, with each application that you'll be doing a review on and making a recommendation on, at the end, there is what we call a findings of fact form, okay? That findings of fact form is basically your justification on your decision on that application, and that will be sent to the City Council when that item goes to the City Council, okay? So the way we would see the process probably working is first staff would do the staff report. Then after that staff report's completed, open it up to the public. They can have that conversation with you and the public. Following the closing of that public hearing, then you as the commission would do the findings of fact. And what you're going to have to do is basically agree on that findings of fact sheet and then make a decision on that application. That's the short version of it. Does anybody have any questions on that?
John, do you want us to do that individually, or you're talking as a commission?
As a commission,
So we have to reach a consensus, you're saying, for those facts?
it would be ideal if you could reach a consensus, but we also understand that the reality might be that if a decision, let's say there's a motion to approve an application, there might still be dissent on the commission, and that's just fine. As long as there's a majority that agrees with the findings.
So it's a consensus decision. It's a majority decision. It doesn't have to be every.
Well, you're not going to vote on every single question. If you look around the table
Right.
and everybody's shaking their head, yes, let's go with that,
Okay.
we move on that way.
Understood.
If you have a situation where it looks like the commission is split fairly evenly, then there maybe needs to be further discussion.
Yep.
The discussion is just amongst the commissioners, though.
Right.
Correct. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before we move into the plodding forward? I am opening the public hearing. Consider the application of James Sauer and Dean Burdorf requesting an interim use permit to allow the operation of a retail record and vintage toy store in an I-2 General Industrial Zoning District at 326 Center Street. The legal description of the property is Lot 1, Block 217, Park Addition. City staff?
This property is located east of North German Street and north of Center Street. For a little background, our city zoning ordinance defines interim use as a temporary use of property until a particular date, till a particular occurrence of a particular event, or until zoning regulations no longer permit it. Section 9.1, the comprehensive use table, states the following. An interim permitted, quote, interim permitted, the community development may, at its discretion, recommend to the applicant, the planning commission, and the city council that any use designated in the table as C, conditionally permitted, may be instead considered as an interim permitted use. Deadline for a decision on this application is July 8th, 2022. The land use designation for this property is industry. Surrounding land uses include to the north and south business, to the east industry, and then to the west downtown. The zoning designation for this property is I-2, the General Industrial District. Its surrounding zoning is to the north and east, I-2, to the south and west, the B3, the General Business District, and then the current site use of the property on the lower level, the applicant has personal auto repair and storage. At the street level, it's currently vacant, and then it is the former location of the Minnesota Valley Testing Laboratories company. Current area land uses, to the north is retail business, it's the former New Home Furniture site. To the east, it's industrial, AMPI. To the south, it's office and business, the Southern Minnesota Orthodontics. And then to the west is the downtown, the Lyric 3 Cinema and parking lot and former mall property. Notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and published in the Journal on May 14th, 2022. We have received a number of emails from a property owner regarding the project with questions regarding the application. Project description. The purpose of the I-2 zoning district is to provide a district that would allow general industrial uses, due to their nature and size, would not be permitted in the I-1 or the planned industrial district. The applicant is proposing to operate a retail record and vintage toy store in a 32 by 43-foot room on the north end of the property on the street level floor on North German Street. In the lower level of the building, the applicant is repairing his own personal vehicles. The applicant's use of the property for repairing his own personal vehicles would be classified as auto repair minor in our current zoning ordinance, which is a permitted use in the I-2 zoning district. The applicant's proposal for a retail record store and vintage toy store would be classified as retail sales of goods as part of an office or industrial use with the CUP. Now, this is why I had that first comment about at the staff's discretion, we can recommend an interim use permit rather than a conditional use permit if it shows that way on the use table. The Planning Commission at its April 28th, 2022 meeting and the City Council at its May 3rd, 2022 meeting recommended denial of the conditional use permit application by James Sowers and recommended that Mr. Sowers apply for an interim use permit. Retail and service establishments are permitted in the I-2 zoning district with a conditional use permit, provided they are essential to the operation of an I-2 general industrial district. A record shop and vintage toy store are permitted uses in the B2, B3, and B4 zoning districts. Directly across the street from this property to the west is the CBD or the downtown zoning district. The application provides the following information on the project. The proposal is to operate a retail record and vintage toy store at 326 Center Street, north side of the building. They're asking to use what is now a vacant building. There are no external impacts from the record and toy store. Parking is provided on site and in front of the store on North German Street. And the applicant has asked for an interim use permit of 5 years. City zoning ordinance requires 4.5 off-street parking stalls for the proposed use. The applicant has stated that they have 5 parking stalls provided on the site. There's also a public parking lot to the west between the former mall and the Lyric 3 movie theater. And the public is allowed to park on German Street and Center Street. In order to recommend approval for the permit, the commission will need to determine that the request meets the standards provided in section 2.4E of the zoning ordinance. These standards are also found on the interim use findings of fact form, and we'll be going through those. The Planning Commission and the City Council must make an affirmative finding on all the criteria in order to grant the interim use permit, and the applicant has the burden of proof to show that all the criteria have been satisfied. We did have 6 attachments. We had the application, we had the site map, which I'll just pull over on the screen so everybody can see. So here's Center Street, here's German. The north side of this building right here is where the applicant is proposing to have the retail record and vintage toy store. We also had our zoning map, another closer site map, close-up of the site. showing the off-street parking locations and the location of the proposed use, and then ground level photos of the property, and then our findings of fact form. For the staff evaluation, the application complies with the standards for granting an interim use permit. A retail record and vintage toy store would generally be less intense of a use than most I-2 permitted land uses. The granting of an interim use permit does not permanently grant the use on the property. Rather, it's for a specified period of time. The applicant is not proposing to permanently change the space as to not make it usable for I-2 purposes in the future. The business would be compatible and would not adversely impact other industrial land uses in the area. Off-street parking is provided for the use on the property, and there is a public parking lot and on-street parking located within less than 100 feet of the proposed use. There is no anticipated odor, noise, or site pollution to be generated from the use, and there are other commercial land uses to the north, east, and south. If approved, we had 6 recommended conditions. First would be that the use shall comply with the standards found in section 2.4E of the zoning ordinance. That's the interim use standards. Number 2, the interim use permit approval should be less than 5 years. Number 3, customer parking will take place on hard surface locations on the applicant's property. 4, the size of the use will not expand nor be moved from the location identified in the application. 5, retail business operations shall not take place after 9 p.m. daily. And 6, the applicant and property owner will pay the cost to record the consent agreement and the interim use permit with the Brown County Recorder's Office. We also provided 2 potential motions, one in favor and one in opposition to this application. And that concludes the staff report.
Okay. I'm going to open the meeting for any statements from the public or any questions from the commissioners.
I guess I got a question for John in regards, what kind of comments or emails or feedback did you receive from the neighbors or?
Sure. We had, the feedback that we received were not in favor of this project. They were concerned about traffic being generated from the use, specifically with traffic that this person's business generates. They were concerned with turning movements on, would be First North and Center Street, and potentially causing conflict with pedestrian vehicles.
Just one comment. I think we received feedback from only one property owner. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, is this different from the parking restrictions? Would be different from any of the other businesses that are on Center Street, or, you know, the orthodontist places there, or any parking problems that would have been caused by New Home Furniture, or which is not there, I understand, but
Right.
Is there a difference in?
I mean, the public, whether they would be shopping at this record store or not, are allowed to use those parking stalls on German Street. It's public parking.
And on, there's parking is there parking in the middle of Center Street?
Yes.
From German Street downhill?
Yeah,
towards the river?
from German to Minnesota. Just German to Minnesota.
Just
going
German
down.
to Minnesota, there's parking in the middle of the street.
Yes.
Okay, I was trying to get that. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have one for John. So in your recommendation for conditions, if approved, you mentioned you guys recommend that we say that they can't expand within the space. Is that correct? That you mean like if in this allotted square that we're saying they're going to take up, if they wanted to take up more of the building, you would recommend that they don't? And if that's correct, then can you explain?
Sure. So what the applicant provided in their application was to have a space that was 32 by 43. Okay, and that would be the place for the retail operation. And with an interim use permit, you know, part of the premise of doing an interim use permit is to basically see if it works in that location, since it's not an outright permitted use. So we would recommend to be specific to the fact that if we are going to approve an interim use permit for this use in that zoning district, that it would be to that space that they provided in the application, rather than just having it open to the whole building if they wanted to do that in the future.
So then it might be more than advantageous for us to, and for the business owner, I'm just thinking, say this blows up and like, well, they don't think that they're gonna have much traffic, like they do, like it's awesome, it's just rocking, and they wanna grow into more of the building. If we had a shorter interim use permit, they could come back sooner to then expand to more of the building if they wanted to, potentially.
Well, there would be nothing that would preclude them from coming back earlier anyway.
So even if we say 5 years, they don't have to wait that whole 5 years,
Yeah.
they could come
And-
back sooner
and the-
and say.
In the
we wanna-
5-year time period, that's actually a decision that the commission should also make a recommendation on.
Right, so whatever year we put on there, if they come back sooner because
They
like,
could.
oh, I went gangbusters, they can
Yeah.
request to have more room. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
John, I've got another question. Does this building meet the criteria for a new startup business, say whether it was in this location or on Main Street? You know, by looking at the pictures of the building, you know, the steps are tilted, there's no railing, there's no ADA. Does it have a minimum restroom? Because if we're confined to just using that upstairs, does it have the necessary to meet what a new business would, or like anybody else, if they're starting a business in a location that's serving the public
Sure.
and their employees?
Elwood, would you be able to answer that one?
Elwood Zabel, city building official. Being there's no permits or anything pulled on it, there's nothing that would have to be upgraded. It's existing building. The ADA stuff is granted by, we can only enforce the Minnesota ADA rules. And being they're not pulling a building permit to do anything, there's nothing to go after.
So Elwood, say if their business is doing really well and they have to pull a permit to do some renovations, so then you're saying at that time, then they'd have to comply, say, with a restroom or a ramp or anything else?
Correct, and then it's whatever for an example, easy math, it's $100,000 project. Up and beyond that, 20% of that, or $20,000 would have to go to ADA improvements.
Okay, then I guess where I'm going from here with this question is because just looking at it, you know, the entry with the steps being crooked, we don't have a railing. Can we as a commission recommend to staff that it have compliance of proper entry and railing for safety for, you know, the customers?
Let's come up.
Please state your name and address.
Towers, 214 East Sanborn Street, Springfield. The steps, what I'm doing with that is I drilled 2 holes in the side. I'm actually gonna put a piece of plate steel down, jack them up to get them level, because we're getting some green treat from Menards, and we're gonna do a handicap ramp with a railing accessible, because we want everybody to be able to see this place. So, we're definitely on it.
So you're putting a railing in,
I'm gonna have to get a permit for it, I know how that works, but as just a person and a property owner, what I'm gonna do for the steps for the time being, if you guys actually drive by, you'll see 2 big holes drilled in the side of them steps. And that's to put jacks under to literally jack the thing level. And then just put some mortar underneath it for a foundation, let it set. That way we can build the ramp, because the way it's cockeyed right now, you're right, we couldn't run a ramp flush until the stairs or we'd have to break it and remove all of it. So we'll get it level and then do a green treat handicap ramp. So hire a subcontractor, get a permit, whatever it takes.
thank you. Did that answer your question?
I guess that answers it if that's meets the criteria or, you know. But can we put conditions that that's done before you would open, I guess?
So you're asking to add that to the recommended
Conditions
conditions?
that upon
Upon
open to the
approval?
public, that we have a proper entry, otherwise we can just say, I'm working on it, you know, or give them a timeline, you know, if upon
Is that allowable?
acceptance of the interim. I'm just,
I would assume that you could identify it as a condition, and if it, for some reason, is not allowable, the city attorney would be able to advise the city council of that fact at their meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't want anybody to get hurt, and he says he's gonna do it, and not saying he won't, but it's just,
Yeah. It's understood. Okay. Are there any
You're
other?
saying you want the condition to be fixing the steps and a ramp? To make it
fixing the
fully
steps,
ADA?
railing, there's accessibility to properly enter the building safely, because the steps are crooked.
Yep, I
and no
understand the
railing.
steps. I'm just wondering, is that necessarily a fair condition to put on, considering other businesses that could come from that don't have to do those things? And sometimes, like, what happens if he goes to put in that ramp, but to be fully ADA compliant, it's not practical, you can't in that space? Then he won't be able to do business there at all, even though he had steps to get in there? I don't know if that's.
I think having steps and a railing, if he wants the ramp, but so be it.
A
But
railing.
A railing, I think, would be a mess, then straighten the steps, I think isn't too much.
That
to
would
ask
make
for.
sense. The ramp is what gives me concern, because I know when
Correct.
we tried to do that on our building in the front, we actually couldn't without getting MnDOT involved, and like, if someone would have put that restriction on us, that we wouldn't have been able to be a business, so.
Correct, and I just,
But steps and railing make perfect sense.
and it's a new business startup, but it's just retrofitting a building, and trying to work with them,
It's difficult when you're working with older buildings, but yeah.
to
Yeah.
retrofit.
Perfect.
What's your timeline, James? I mean, you said you're on it. What in your own mind, what's your timeline to get this done? Okay, so that's your,
Can you speak up to the microphone, please? Can you come up to the microphone and
Right.
speak, please? I'm sorry.
You guys want, you can come over and see it afterwards. Come not. Because we were gonna do online regardless, you at least have it set up, because with the records and stuff we do, it's so much easier to sort through them, like as if you were, instead of digging through piles and then walk to the
Correct.
post office and mail them. So it's actually already all set up in there and ready to go.
I'll
I-
just ask again, just for the record, is that your timeline to do your intended repairs on the steps? You said it'd take you, you're planning a couple weeks
Yes, yeah,
currently
if
from
that
the.
even, Dave.
Okay, I just want to be clear,
Yep.
because with the motion or with the discussion, what would be an acceptable timeline, given, because it'll take another week or so to get the city council meeting, and so we just want to line things up.
I'd even push, we were working on it today, I'll be working on it again tomorrow too, so.
All
I
right,
mean,
so it's.
I just wanted to have a safe time, because like you said, I guess you must deal with people like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and they don't, like, it's not gonna happen, we're gonna get it done.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for him while he's up here? No? Thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any more discussion amongst the panel, commissioners? Is there anyone else in the audience that cares to speak? Please step up and state your name and address.
Bill Swan, representing AMPI at 312 Center Street. Guys, I talked before. Certainly, I will tell you an interim permit is more desirable than the permanent one that we were talking about a month ago. 5 years, though, I think is still a long time for that. One thing that I didn't bring up last time, because I didn't really know about it until recently, we are a food plant, and FDA has certain expectations for us in what they call food defense. If you have ever been out by the Kraft plant, you'll know that plant is fenced, 6 or 8 feet high, guard at the front gate. That's the desired situation. You can't do that here in town, obviously, and especially in a much older building. But if we're gonna have commercial customer next door, we're gonna have to increase our food defense plan initiatives in that area, which will mean gates and fences between the properties, so that we don't have people, we have tanks out there, we've got outdoor access, we got roof access. So there'll have to be another layer of protection between us and others. So
So how does that change when Minnesota Valley Testing was in that building, right?
That was the question I had.
nobody,
And furniture in the other building.
and those that are there are the same people every day. Now, we got people, general public coming from, we don't know who they are, where they're from. So as a risk assessment, that will be different for us. And the other thing I would tell you is, FDA's rules in regard to food defense, what they were 10 years ago and what they were even 2 years ago are vastly different. So they continue to reinforce and change the statute, the federal statute, on what's expected. And, as a food business guy, you just do your best to keep up.
So will you have to make those changes regardless because of the bike trail going through there?
The bike trail, that was like 15 years ago.
But to get your compliance with the people walking by on foot, do you need to
That
put
was
up a
mostly
fence there
heavy
too?
truck traffic and bicycles don't mix. So at that time, food defense was, we had to have parking stickers in cars, lock the doors on the outside, have somebody walk around once in a while. It's way past that now. And I don't know that I can even tell you all the things we do.
But to make yourself compliant as a business, you don't need to now put a fence between you and the bike trail as well as on the side
No.
of the new business? So it's just,
There's no entries there. The bike trail is quite a ways away. There is a fence already
Okay.
there.
I see.
So if the people will all use the bike trail and not go through the alleyway, But, so anyway, that's gonna change. We're gonna have to have a surveyor come in and $500 or $1,000 and probably $3,000 to $5,000 in fence, but
So, Bill, you essentially own that alleyway, is that from, say,
yeah, my
going
understanding
north,
is
south?
we own the alleyway, but I don't know exactly where the property line actually is. I don't know if the property line is a foot from the building. I don't know if the property line is 2 feet from the building. I don't know if the edge of the building is on our property line. So that's why I gotta do the survey.
Let's just clarify the alleyway that we're talking about. John, can you show them what,
That alleyway, okay, but the alleyway entrance for where the off-street parking sign is, that's a public alleyway, correct?
that's correct.
Yes.
Thank you, okay.
So I'm hearing you, Bill, that you're saying that through that north-south, it'd be a fence, would be
Yep.
continued from the building,
Be a gate here
fence there.
and over to the bench of our building and wherever city code, whatever the code says we gotta be inside our boundaries and whatnot.
And then any new business outside of, even if it wasn't what's coming in there now and proposed, any business in the future that this changes to, you still need to put the fence up.
We have to do anytime there's a change, we have to do what's called a risk assessment. And so, what does that tell us? And if there's, for us in particular, because we can't do a craft type situation, then we have to do, basically mitigating steps. What are you gonna do to mitigate not having that big tall fence with barbed wire all around it? And there's a whole bunch of different things that we have to do. So anyway, I would put that out there, and that's all I have to say. Unless there's any other questions.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone on the commission have any other questions? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. The public hearing portion of the meeting is closed. So we move on to our finding of facts supporting documents. And on the top, you should all have them in the top form there. The first item on there is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of Appendix A. And Appendix A, I asked that question, is our new planning and zoning ordinances. So the question
Chair,
is,
I would read the findings of fact form that you guys
you
have
want-
on your
Pardon me?
computers. I would read the findings of fact form that you guys have on your computers.
okay. Not the one I have in front of me, all right. Okay, this is on page 15, all right. Finding of facts, supporting and denying of interim use permit requests. The discussion on the interim use permit application requires the planning commission to make the following finding of facts to support their decision pursuant to the conditions identified by the staff and others. Number one, will the use adversely impact nearby properties through nuisances, noise, traffic, dust, odor, or unsightliness? And will not otherwise adversely impact the health, safety, and welfare of the community, yes or no? And why or why not? Ashley?
It's not really changing much to what's already there. The same traffic levels appear that it seems like it will be similar to what was there before, as well as with similar to the other nearby businesses that are there.
Probably less as far as testing would have had chemicals. This does not, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Any other statement other than that opinion? Are we agreeing with that opinion?
Agreed.
I agree.
Okay. So I'm hearing that we are in agreement because we see no difference to other businesses that were in that building in the near past, not
And
distant
surrounding
past.
area.
And possibly the same amount of traffic. Okay, next question. Will the use adversely impact implementation of the comprehensive plan, yes or no, why or why not?
I would say no, it's not changing zoning, it's not changing the flow of street traffic, we're not changing the building, so I don't see that there's any adverse impact relative to the
So-
comprehensive plan.
The only thing I see is that it's just kind of like spot zoning, basically, because you're singling it out, that you're going to put a retail setting in it, but that's,
Yes, but not far from the other half of the block, correct?
correct.
Okay,
But without knowing the future,
yeah.
the other half of the
Right.
block.
right.
I,
Okay,
w- I would just note that we're not changing the zoning of the property, though.
right, right. Okay, so I heard no because it is not, there is no adverse impact to the existing properties. We in agreement?
Yes.
Is the date, event, or change in circumstances that will terminate the interim use identified with certainty?
Do we want to stick with 5 years, or do we want shorter interim?
I would rather have shorter because we don't know the future of the north half of that block. And, and when we had Mr. Sowers here a month ago, he said he wanted to try it a couple of years. And a couple of years I could see, but, that's just my opinion.
Okay, is there any other?
I'm comfortable with the 5 myself if he decides, as he did state more previously, that he may intend to move this to a different location eventually, within 5 years even.
Yeah.
Please do, James, thank you.
Public hearing closed. Do you want him to come up?
Well,
Yeah.
Okay, answer a question?
This is our discussion, so
I hope I didn't
sorry,
shoot.
James, I'm sorry, apparently this is, the public part of this is closed. I don't want to misquote you, but I do recall that James said last time that he may move to a different location at some point. And since he doesn't have to stay there 5 years, it is simply no more than 5 years. I guess that's my stance or my opinion, that I'm comfortable with leaving
Your
it 5 years.
opinion, He could stay 5 years. So 5 years is,
If the business is
but if
working
he
and the
chooses
location's
to
working.
move, it's not going to affect anything. Is that,
Correct,
did I hear that
correct.
correct?
I'm fine with the timeline of 5 years. I mean, we don't have anything else on the table right now that telling us that there's going to be a change, and we've already asked him the interim gives us and himself options, so I'm comfortable with the timeline.
I like 5 years as well, because I think 2 or 3 would be too short to tell for business if it's really going to succeed. Like, you need a little bit of a longer time frame.
Michelle?
I agree with the 5 as well.
So I'm hearing in consensus. Kate is concentrating.
No, I'm in agreement.
You agree? Okay.
Yeah, I'm
So-
not in agreement. I'm
You're
just
not in
saying,
agreement, okay.
because we don't know the future of the north half of that block at this
Exactly.
point in time. And, and changing the use of it and how that might hinder other activity with that property. That's
Okay.
my reasoning, and I would rather stay with 2 years.
So I heard, so the answer to the question is yes, we agree with the interim timeline if the property owner decides to change it, that's his prerogative in the future. Okay. Does the applicant agree to all conditions that the city council deems appropriate to allow the use, including a condition that the owner may be required to provide an appropriate financial surety to cover the cost of removing the interim use and any interim structures upon the expiration of the interim use permit? Well, that is something we did not cover.
I would
Going
think that this particular item, is almost not applicable, and given the fact that there are no interim structures on the property.
So we're skipping question 4.
Well, I
that-
think the first part that, he agrees to all the conditions. The conditions were identified by staff, and I think he did not indicate that he objected to any of
Objected to them,
so-
okay. All right. So hearing no objection, I'm going to assume the answer is yes, because there has been no objection. Question number 5, will the proposed use hinder the permanent development of the site?
No, because he's not making any significant changes at this time.
Any other comments? I heard 2 no's. Because it's not hindering in any way?
Correct.
All right. Will the use create an excessive burden on the existing parks, schools, streets, and other public facilities which serve or are proposed to serve the areas?
No.
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 Because there aren't any close by other than the street? No, okay. That's my why. All right. Are there or will there be provided adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and necessary facilities?
I think this is like what Dave just commented, it doesn't appear to be inapplicable. Because we're not making any changes, we're not adding or deleting.
Were he to change, then they would be part of the plan.
It's an existing structure.
It's an existing structure. So our answer is no, this is an existing structure. Were there any changes to be made in the future, then it would be applicable. All right. Has the applicant signed a consent agreement stating that the applicant, owner, operator, tenant, and/or user has no entitlement to future reapproval of the interim use permit, as well as agreeing that the interim use will not impose additional costs to the public if it is necessary for the public to fully or partially take the property in the future? I'm assuming that the city has discussed this with him when he was applying for permits.
Well, typically what would happen with an interim use permit is the city council would take action on it, and the requirement for the consent agreement is a condition, as it is in this particular case, and so it would be enforced following the council's approval of the request.
So I'm going to say it's understood.
I think that you can say yes, due to the condition in the, your recommendation to the,
That's
city
what I'm
council.
saying, yes. Okay. So that answers these questions. Most of the questions. Does anybody else have any comments?
There's two more
I got another
questions.
page
More
of questions.
questions.
There's another page of questions.
Another
Oh, I'm
page.
sorry, I apologize for being dense, I don't know. Will the use cause or impose additional costs to the city of New Ulm?
No.
No.
No, I don't see any, I mean, in prediction. Question number 10, will the interim use adhere to any applicable additional criteria outlined in section 2.4E8 for the proposed use? I don't see any.
Again, that's one of the conditions that staff had recommended with this application.
I have to go back to the conditions just a second. Excuse me while I page. The applicant property owner will pay the costs. Okay, the use shall comply with the standards found in section 42 of the zoning. Okay, so that was agreed to in the conditions when he agreed to the conditions. I'm catching up. Okay. So I'm saying that he's already agreed to this, and that's acceptable to everyone? All right. So the facts supporting the answer to each question above are hereby certified to be the findings of facts of the New Ulm Planning Commission. So I still think we need, this is where we vote.
So there needs to be a motion,
A motion and a,
and, you know, you need to deal with the conditions
okay.
as part of the motion.
This new form is making almost sense to me right now. Okay, we are at the point where I am going to ask for a motion to approve or deny the request. There were two recommended motions attached.
Recommend the approval with conditions for the interim use permit application of James Sowers and Dean Burdoff to allow the operation of the retail record and vintage toy store in an I-2 general and industrial zoning district for the location and size described in their interim use permit application on the property legally described as Lot 1, Block 217, Park Edition, and it would be for a 5-year permit with the 6 conditions listed by the city.
Is this, are you including the condition that they put the railing in the
Oh,
seventh
add
condition?
yes, amending that motion to add a 7th addition that they must have a railing and level stair entry.
Okay. Do I have a second to this motion?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
No.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you. The motion has been carried, and we will, when does this go to the council? There's no meeting next week,
June 7th,
June 7th?
yeah.
All right.
I think in the case of a split vote, we probably should have a roll call vote then.
I'm sorry,
We
Dave.
should have a roll call vote,
Roll call?
yeah. So if I can go through or through the list of members, Ms. Mako,
Vote yes.
Ms. Akas,
Yes.
Mr. Mack,
No.
Mr. Munson,
Yes.
Ms. Sellner,
Yes.
Mr. Firth,
Yes.
Chair Earl.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is approved on a 6-1 vote with
Okay.
conditions.
Thank you. All right. June 7th at the city council then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the public hearing opening for the consider the application of Dwayne Helwig of the Community Living Solutions and Candace Chanvillier. I apologize. requesting a variance for the following: to allow the vehicle driving lane within 0 feet of the front property line, and 2, to allow off-street parking spaces to be located within the front yard setback as described in the variance application for the property at 1314 8th North Street. The property is legally described as Lot 1 and 2, Block 1, Oak Hills First Edition, and is zoned R4, High Density Residence District. John?
Thank you. This property is located west of North Garden Street and between 8th North and Oak Streets. The deadline for a decision on this application is July 5th, 2022. The land use designation here is high-density residential. Surrounding land uses include to the north and to the south, high-density residential, and then to the east and to the west, low-density residential. This property zoning designation is the R4, the high-density residence district. Surrounding zoning includes to the north, the R4, high-density residence district, to the south, R4 and INSM, so that's the institutional medical district. To the east, it's the RT2, or traditional neighborhood, single and two-family residence district. To the west, it's R1, and that's the single-family residence district. Currently, the site is used for assisted living, short-term rehabilitation, hospice care, and senior apartments. Essentially, it is a nursing home facility. Current area land uses include to the north, Garden Terrace Apartments, to the south, the Newell Medical Center and senior apartments. To the east, it is vacant and single-family residences, and then to the west, it is steep hillside and single-family residences. Notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and published in the New Ulm Journal. Staff did receive 4 phone calls inquiring about the project. They just basically were knowing about, wanted to know about how this could potentially affect their properties, and when they understood that it's at the bottom of the hill, they were all very okay with the project and supported it. The purpose of the R4 multiple family residence district is to provide high-density residential housing along with direct complementary uses. Oak Hills is proposing to construct a 2-story, 8-unit assisted living addition and a, 2-story, 30-bed assisted living, dementia care, and long-term care addition. The Oak Hills property is 7.45 acres with an existing facility covering approximately 4.6 acres or 61% of the property. That total percentage of coverage includes buildings, driving lanes, and off-street parking. The property is located along 8th North Street and west of Garden Street. 8th North Street going west ends as it meets the steep hill grade going to the west, and there are no plans to develop 8th North Street to the west to intersect with Bishop Lucker Lane at the top of the hill. And if you go there today, you would see that there is a little walking path up there. The improved portion of 8th North Street that serves Oak Hills also serves as the main entrance and parking area for the New Ulm Medical Center. The remaining undeveloped part of the Oak Hills property is largely a steep hillside to the west, and the applicant states that this area is infeasible for additional parking. The proposed expansion would displace the existing off-street parking located on the south side of the property. The applicant's proposed parking plan does exceed the number of stalls required for the existing use and expansion. Oak Hills is proposing to install an additional driving lane and parking on the south side of the proposed addition abutting 8th North Street. This driving lane would encroach 5 feet into the 8th North Street right-of-way. The right-of-way encroachment would be addressed through a license agreement through the City Council. Section 10.7J7N of the zoning ordinance requires that all off-street parking and driving areas be located no closer than 30 feet from the front yard property line in the R4 zoning district. The proposed new driving lane to service the building expansion will be 0 feet from the front property line, 8th North Street. The applicant is proposing to install 16 off-street parking stalls and 4 handicap-accessible parking stalls as a part of their Oak Hills expansion project. Parking stalls will be 8 feet wide by 20 feet long, and then the handicap stalls will be slightly wider. The proposed new parking stalls will be located approximately 20 feet from the front property line, and will encroach into the front yard setback 10 feet. There is additional parking plan for this facility expansion, and it will be located on the west side of the building addition. To install this parking, the portion of the steep hillside will need to be graded, and they're proposing proposing a retaining wall be installed to access. These parking spaces and driving areas will meet the setback requirements. The application provides the following information on the project. The 5-foot encroachment over the property line with surface driveway is relatively unimposing and not near any adjacent property structures. The steep grade that compromises a large portion of the west side of the lot is infeasible for additional parking. And due to the topography, the majority of the open areas on the site are infeasible for additional parking. Based on Oak Hill's assessment of their own current parking shortage, they are proposing the minimum amount of additional stalls to help alleviate the shortage. Staff's evaluation. This property does have a steep grade between their developed property and the residential properties to the west up the slope. There are no planned improvements for 8th North Street extending west, and the request being made is reasonable, and they are requesting the minimum amount necessary to alleviate the practical difficulty. Again, in order to recommend approval for a variance request, the commission will need to adopt findings of facts and recommendations using the review criteria found in the findings of fact form on attachment 6. Okay. The Planning Commission and City Council must make affirmative action on all variance criteria in order to grant the variance request. Applicant has the burden of proof to show that all of the criteria have been satisfied. We did provide 7 attachments with this application. The first one is attachment 1, the application site and building plan. Number 2 is the site location map. 3 is the zoning map. 4 is the site map. And 5 is the site drawing. And I will scroll to that one because it sounded like there were some questions on reading that site drawing. So I know we have a representative here from both Dwayne is here and Candace is here, I believe, and probably would be willing to answer some questions about this as well. But here's 8th North Street, okay? This would be going west. Here's the steep hillside that we kept referring to. Where this little thin black line right here, that is the front property line. It is also that is the furthest extent of the 8th North Street right-of-way. So when they drew in their red line, here is beyond that black line into the 8th North Street right-of-way, 5 feet.
One other thing I would like to note is that the zoning ordinance only goes up to the edge of the street. So that's what you're reviewing, and we'll be making a decision on. Anything that's within the city right-of-way, that's up to the city council to deal with that issue.
So anything to the west of that red line is up to the city council? Is that what you just said?
Anything going this direction,
Yes.
from that red line south.
So I don't understand directions, but okay. So anything going south there is not, it's not part of our purview. It's
No.
inside those red lines, correct?
So it is from the property line, it is for Oak Hill's property within their property lines.
Yes.
So it would be from this corner going north, this corner going west, and then it goes up the hill. You can see the edge of the property line
Okay,
on the hillside.
thank you. And the question to us was to allow off-street parking spaces located within the front yard setback as described in the variance application. So that's that, okay,
And you have the first one,
right.
The
to
map
allow
just
vehicle
before this is
driving
really helpful.
0
John.
feet.
Okay, this one?
That-
Oh, yeah,
think
but
that-
it's
I
my,
think that
to
one is-
allow the driving lane to be
Correctly.
within 0 feet of the property. He just changed screens on me, so that's this. right? Yeah. Oh, this A Street is here, yes, okay. I got it. Thank you.
Okay, would you like me to continue on the staff
Please.
report? Okay. And then we had attachment number 6 are ground level photographs of the property, and attachment number 7 is the findings of fact form. If recommended for approval, we would recommend 2 conditions. 1, that the applicant shall contact the city once survey stakes have been set for the placement of the driving lane and parking stalls within the setback area. And 2, that the applicant shall pay the cost to record the variance with the Brown County Recorder's Office. We did provide 2 potential motions, 1 to approve and 1 to deny the variance request. And that concludes the staff report.
All right. I apologize for the interruption. I just had a really hard time understanding these drawings when I was reading it at home. And I wish I could blame the cough medicine, but I can't. Okay. Are there any questions, discussions? Just, would you like?
I do have just a clarification, so I'm understanding this correctly. So it says that there's a driving lane to service a building expansion would be 0 feet. So on this particular picture, your driving lane would be on the right of that yellow block there. Is that where your driving lane would be? I'm just trying to understand how you would lay it out.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure, yeah. Dwayne Hellwig, 5520 Ewing Street South in Minneapolis.
Thank you.
And I'm the architect on the project, or one of them. And so your question was on the yellow area. Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, you talk about a driving lane. So where would the driving lane be?
So the property line is located, I'm not sure where it is on this map here, but the driving lane is 5 feet over the property line. That property line, well, actually, this red line is the property line, so the driving lane's going 5 feet over the property line into the right-of-way.
Okay.
And that was Dave's comment relative to the planning commission stops at the property line discussion, and the city itself city council will have to rule upon that 5 feet on the other side of that red line. But if we rule or we in favor of the 15 feet on the other side, then the city's got to determine that 5 feet on the other side. Okay.
Okay. Kate, did you have any more questions?
No, that's it.
That was it?
answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. The front yard setback parking is going to be where on this is? That's down here, correct?
So the front yard, the front yard setback for this property would be from essentially this red line going that direction 30 feet. It's only 10 feet of those parking stalls that would be within that 30-foot setback area. Okay, so the rest of it is free and clear. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And then if I look around the building, those are all parking. I was concerned about the number of parking lot spaces lost, but I think I see additional parking in the back, so that's covered there. Okay.
It might be a little bit difficult to see, but when I was talking about the parking near the retaining wall, that's referring to this parking right here.
Correct. Yeah.
There also is extended parking in the front of the building, and John can maybe point to that, to the right there. Keep on that, yeah.
And then if I'm seeing this correctly, so you still are entering the driveway as you do currently, and you still are turning into that parking lot as you are currently, correct?
Well, your left-hand turn is going to begin earlier.
It'll be shorter.
Shorter.
Yeah. But it essentially it is not interfering with the 8th North traffic going in to the clinic area, or, because that is
The
the
curb
other-
cut off the street going into the Oak Hills parking is the same. That's not changing, correct?
Correct.
Right.
And the sidewalk isn't impacted either on that side of the street.
And is it interfering, because currently I do recall that there's often people parking on 8th North occasionally. Is that going to be interfered with at all by any of these changes? No. Okay. That answered, but does anyone else have any questions? Anything to say? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address the commission? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of the meeting and move on to,
Now, this one, you guys, I would like you to use those sheets that I handed out.
these.
Just keeping you on your toes tonight.
This, so I'm using this,
So not on our computers,
No.
use the paper
the
version.
paper version, all
Okay.
right. Okay. A variance may be granted only with the strict enforcement of the city zoning controls will result in a practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the individual property under consideration. A decision on a variance request shall be based on the following criteria. 1, is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the city's zoning ordinance?
I'd say yes, we're not pre-changing zoning, right? We're still in the same zone, nothing's happened. I don't see any
I don't either.
Pardon me?
changes.
I don't see any change in zoning.
That, any change would be up to the city anyway, correct?
Right.
No, okay.
No.
Is it, and everyone is in agreement?
Agreed.
Okay.
Correct.
Is the variance request consistent with the city's comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Does anyone have a reason for saying yes?
A reason would be that it's consistent with the land use plan in that document.
There you
Okay. Does the proposal put the property to use in a reasonable manner not permitted by the city zoning ordinance?
I'd say yes.
Yes.
Yes? I think they're doing what they can to, this is, okay, 2 sides, all right, I'll get this straight. Does the proposal impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property? Unreasonable increase congestion to public streets, increase the danger of fire, substantially diminish property values, and will not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to the property or improvements in the zoning district or neighborhood in which the property is located?
No.
No.
No. I don't think any changes impact anything within.
No.
No. Are the physical surroundings, lot, size, or shape, topography, water conditions, or other physical conditions unique to the property?
Yes,
Yes.
the severe slope on the west side that's been noted by the staff,
That limits their,
which limits the property, so options, correct.
Well, and it's locked in by surrounding properties,
Right.
yes. The unique circumstances related to the property do not generally apply to other properties or buildings in the same zoning district or vicinity. I'd say that's true. They do not generally apply. Because it's the only thing, well, the hospital is there.
Right,
That's
the-
about it.
And
Pardon?
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
And the other apartment building, I
other
mean,
apartment
all of
building.
them have that.
And they all have the same circumstances, so it's not unique. No,
Topography. you
right,
know.
topography. Were the unique circumstances,
I think let's
Pardon
maybe
me?
just review that one again.
Okay.
I think the unique circumstances do not generally apply. So what we want, in order to advance this request, we have, I think you have to make a determination that there are unique circumstances with this property.
An example I would.
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
I think we did determine that the property is unique.
Right.
Right, but this question is referring to the fact that there's other R4 properties within the city of New Ulm, and is this property unique compared to those?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. That changed, yeah, okay. Were the unique circumstances related to the property, were the unique circumstances related to the property were not created by the owner of the property?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
They were not created.
So again, we're referring to the slope on the
The west side,
property.
yes. Will the variance alter the essential character of the locality? I don't
No.
know. In the variance request, the minimum amount necessary to eliminate the practical difficulties.
Should that be is the variance request?
Yeah, I'm missing a word somewhere in here. In the variance,
Should say is the variance request.
is the
minimum.
variance
If we
request.
change that to into is, then
Makes
I
sense.
would answer yes. That
Okay.
that is the minimum amount necessary to eliminate the difficulty.
Agreed.
Are we in agreement?
Yes.
We changed the word and it's, okay. Do the economic conditions alone not allow for a reasonable use of the property? Do the economic considerations alone not allow for the reasonable use of the property?
So, one way to interpret that question, because that's kind of legalese, is the only reason it's being put here because it's the cheapest route to build. That's one of the questions that you try to parse out when reviewing a variance.
I don't,
You know, like if a property owner were to ask, well, I want to put my addition here because, well, it's the cheapest route for me to build my addition rather than trying to actually meet the city zoning ordinance or the code requirements.
right,
But this is something that's in state statute, and that's why it's
Okay.
part of the application.
No.
So I'd say no.
I don't think it's an economic,
No.
that's the only reason is economic conditions.
Correct.
I think it's land, is the condition. Okay. We have come to the end of this form. So I'm going to request a motion. We have two recommended motions to approve or to deny. And then we can move on to further discussion.
For motion to recommend approval with conditions of the variance application of Dwayne Helgwig of Community Living Solutions and Candace Chavlar on behalf of Oak Hills Living Center. One, to allow vehicle driving lane within 0 feet of the front line, and two, to off-street parking spaces to be located within front yard setbacks areas as depicted on the site plan, provided with variance application on the property legally described as lots 1 and 2, Block 1, Oak Hills, First Edition,
With conditions?
with conditions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'd second that.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair and Madam Secretary, let the records show that I will be abstaining from this vote due to my involvement with the Oak Hills Foundation Board.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. David, is this appearing in the city council 7th, June 7th? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item for public hearing is consider the application of Lawrence Latito requesting a variance to allow an attached garage to be located 5 feet 6 inches from the side property line of the property zoned R1 Single Family Residence District with street address of 1446 Center Street. The property is legally described as Lot 2, the replot of the Highlands subdivision. City report?
Okay, this property address is 1446 Center Street. Property is located north of Center Street and east of North Highland Avenue. Excuse me. Deadline for a decision on this application is June 26, 2022. The comprehensive land use designation for this property is low-density residential. Surrounding land uses include to the north and west, low-density residential. To the south, it's public, semi-public. To the east, it's low-density residential and park and open space. Zoning designation for this property is the R1 Single Family Residence District. Surrounding zoning includes to the north, east, and west, the R1 zoning district. And then to the south, it's the INSE, it's the Institutional Education District. Currently, the site is used as a single-family residence. Current area land uses to the north, east, and west are single-family residences, and then to the south, it's MLC College. Notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and noticed in the New Ulm Journal. Staff has not received any comments regarding this variance request. Project description. The purpose of the R1 Single Family Residence District is to provide for a low-density, single-family, detached residential dwelling units along with directly related complementary uses. This property is 100 feet wide by 78 feet deep, or 8,502 square feet. The applicant is proposing to construct a 24-foot wide by 22-foot deep, two-stall, attached garage to be located 5 feet 6 inches from the east side property line. The required side yard setback in the R1 zoning district is 10 feet for a structure proposed like this. There is a one-stall attached garage on and a concrete pad used for residential parking purposes located on the east side of the home that is proposed to be replaced with the two-stall attached garage. The ridge line for the new attached garage will attach the ridge line of the house. The eave lines for the new attached garage will match the eave lines for the house. The exterior wall of the new attached garage abutting the east side property line will be 15 feet 6 inches from the neighbor's exterior wall of their home. So the closest this garage will be is 15 feet 6 inches from the neighbor's home. Stormwater generated from the new attached garage will not drain into the neighbor's property. In 2013, the Latitos were approved for a variance to place a carport 6 feet 6 inches from the east side property line. The proposed location of the new double-stall attached garage is in the same location as the carport was in 2013, except it would be 1 foot closer to the east side property line. To date, the carport has not been constructed. The proposed double-stall garage will be placed largely on existing concrete slab where there is an existing single-stall garage and an additional outdoor parking is located on the property. The applicant provides the following information on the project. The garage would eliminate snow and ice hazards when accessing the car in wintry weather conditions. And of special note, a variance for a carport was previously approved. Although parking is allowed on Center Street, cars parked hinder the vision of drivers turning from Highland onto Center, and a garage would keep our car off the street and that we could access without going outside. This would allow greater safety for us in adverse weather conditions. We want safety for use in other drivers on both Center Street and Highland Avenue. Staff evaluation. The two-stall garage will replace the existing one-stall attached garage and will eliminate outdoor parking that is currently existing east of the one-stall garage on the property. The request being made is reasonable, a reasonable use of the property and will not change the essential character of the neighborhood. And the proposed garage will be no closer to the property line. Delete that last one.
Okay.
Other project considerations. In order to recommend approval of the variance request, the commission will need to adopt findings of fact and recommendations using the review criteria as provided on the findings of fact form in attachment 6. Planning Commission and City Council must make affirmative findings on all the variance criteria in order to grant the variance request. The applicant has the burden of proof to show that all the criteria above have been met. We had 6 attachments. We had the attachment 1, application and site and building plan. Attachment 2, which is the site location map. Attachment 3, the zoning map. Attachment 4, this is the site map, and you can see on this map, the area highlighted in blue is the proposed location of the garage. We had attachment 5, ground level photos of the property, and then attachment 6, findings of fact form. If approved, staff would recommend 2 conditions. 1, that the applicant shall contact the city once construction stakes have been set for the placement of the double-stall attached garage. And then 2, the applicant shall pay the cost to record the variance with the Brown County Recorder's Office. We also did provide 2 potential motions, 1 to approve or 1 to deny the variance request. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for staff or the Latitos are here?
And I was on the planning commission, and there was no objections when I was on the planning commission when we approved the carport in 2013.
So the additional foot for you is?
Is no problem. We've granted it already, in that neighborhood already for 5-foot setback.
The only question I have is this property fenced?
So if I recall correctly, the backyard behind the house is fenced.
Okay.
Is it the white outline on the map, correct?
Yep.
Yeah,
White outline around it?
Right here.
right, yep.
Sure.
But there is access then from both sides. I see there must be a gate there. All right, thank you. Does anyone else have questions, comments, discussion?
I just think here it just shows that, the people are, housing's in such a crunch, and you're gonna remodel to try to suit your needs and stay within your home because you know your home and, you can't go out and build.
Yeah, I would just note, though, that, again, you're making your decision based on what's on the findings of fact.
Yep.
You're making your decision using.
I do have a question for Mr. Latito. If you would step up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Lawrence Latito, 1446 Center Street.
I understand that this property has no alley or anything, so it's difficult to access the back of your property. With this garage, do you still have access for lawn mowing and everything other than through the garage? There's side?
We have an existing gate, and that gate would be moved over to the other side then.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's in the plans.
Yeah, and it's just for me, I didn't want, because you're kind of narrow on both sides of the property, which is not your doing because you just bought the you purchased the existing property as is. It was the house is where it is. Okay, but
Yeah, the same gate that we have now that we use to access the back, that will fit in
Okay.
in this addition.
that was my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else have any comments, questions? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of the meeting. Am I moving on with this form? Okay, thank you. Just checking. Okay, a variance may be granted only where the district enforcement of the city zoning controls will result in a practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the unit of property under consideration. A decision on the variance request shall be based on the following criteria. Is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the city's zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Is there a reason? David?
Well, it's a residential property, so that would be the reason.
That's the end.
Is the variance request consistent with the city's comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Does the proposal put the property to use in a reasonable manner not permitted by the city zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Is it?
Yes.
Yes.
Can someone tell me why it's a reasonable man that's not permitted? I think the variance was there already. He's just requesting an additional foot. Is that
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
all right?
So, I just want to point out that when, you know, that here, as we go through this, the question of why and why not is not stated as a requirement when we say must make an affirmative finding. So nothing says that we have to make an affirmative finding and then substantiate it further with an issue or discussion. So I would just point out that those two are not the same thing. So while it was correctly pointed out, we must make an affirmative finding relative to the criteria, we do not have to further substantiate it relative to this form because that isn't what's stated or required. Am I correct in that assumption? Because we want to be clear on this, but every time we go through this, it's like we're making sausage that we don't need to make.
Well, I think.
And I just want to be clear that the question, why or why not, is not required based upon what's being stated. What is required is an affirmative finding. So when we say yes, we don't necessarily have to go to the next level. Well, why?
Well, I think the intent of the why or why not is to avoid situations where, is this a reasonable use of the property? Yes. I mean, that could just be a feeling.
Right.
So that's the reason to have to explain out why or why not. In particular, there's a number of questions on here that we do need the details on the why or why not when you answer those questions.
So, and that's just something maybe for future conversation relative to just this commission and group, is that we would come up with some of those, because we look for guidance, and the guidance, you have the institutional knowledge relative to that, but we should probably give ourselves some options relative to it fits this criteria or it doesn't fit this criteria, that would make this process move much more fluid, and I'm just pointing that out because it's kind of, this is a new change for us today.
Yeah.
And so I just want to help
Right.
improve. If we're going to roll this way, then we can roll a little smoother. But
Sure.
I just wanted to be clear. I'm not contending the problem. I'm just trying to understand it better.
Are we moving? Are
Yep.
you, okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Does the proposal impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties, unreasonably increase congestion of public streets, increase the danger of fire, substantially diminish property values, and will not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to the property or improvements in the zoning district or the neighborhood in which the property is located?
No.
No. Private, yes.
Intent is the opposite regarding safety.
Right.
Yeah.
You're correct, right. Are the physical surroundings, lot size or shape, topography, water conditions, or other physical conditions unique to the property? No.
No,
No.
no.
I'd say the lot size and shape is the unique part that, well, I guess the shape and size of the lot is not, but just the fact that Dave's got limited space to work with, and he's trying to stay within the confines of the already existing driveway.
It doesn't have as pointed out, it doesn't have an alleyway
No, it's
or off that ability.
The unique circumstances related to the property do not generally apply to other properties or buildings in the same zoning district or vicinity. No.
I'd say no.
You'd say, anybody
In
have
order,
any-
in order to
Pardon me?
recommend approval of the variance, this is a question that should be answered yes.
Say that.
So we do have to say that it's yes, there is a
What is unique about this property
unique
that
is that it-
isn't?
So this is the one of the questions that you
need
need the
to
why or
affirm
why
on.
not.
Right.
Okay, the unique circumstances related to the property do not generally apply to other properties.
Would be,
So in that area, there are other properties in this area of the zone that do have alleyways. This one in particular does not have an alleyway. And with the, I guess, just, that would be one of the significant issues
I
to
think
me.
I think part of the uniqueness is the property already has a variance attached to it.
Okay, right?
That's
that's
good
pretty
point.
clear.
Good point, yeah.
Clear,
Clear.
the property already has variance attached to it. We're only increasing that variance by a foot.
Correct.
I agree.
So yes, that is a unique characteristic.
Kate? did you
Agreed.
agree? Thank you. Okay. Where the unique circumstances related to the property were not created, I'm gonna eliminate that first word. The unique circumstances related to the property were not created by the owner of the property. This is correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Will the variance alter the initial or the essential character of the locality?
No.
No. Will the variance request the minimum amount of necessary, is the variance request the minimum amount necessary to eliminate the practical difficulty?
Yes.
Yes.
The additional
I'll
foot
get-
allows us to occur.
Do the economic conditions allow, alone not allow for this reasonable use of the property?
No.
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 Okay. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Otherwise, I'm going to close, excuse me, the public hearing is already, I'm going to request a motion. There were two with conditions, and also conditions listed, so.
I would motion to approve, to recommend approval with conditions, the variance requested by Lawrence Latito to allow an attached garage to be located 5 feet 6 inches from the side property line as shown in the site plan, provided with the variance application on the property legally described as Lot 2, the replat of Highland subdivision.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. It will appear on June 7th at the city council hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. Next on the agenda is the public hearing is to consider the application of Al Kapishki, or Matt Kapishki, on behalf of Yaka LLC, requesting a variance to allow a roofed patio area 1 foot from the side property line on the property zoned RT2, traditional neighborhood, single and two-family residential district at 425 North State Street. The property is legally described as Lot 7, Block 110, north of Center Street. City report.
Okay, this property is located at the southwest corner of the intersection of 5th North Street and North State Street. Deadline for a decision on this application is July 10th, 2022. Land use designation for this property is low-density residential. Surrounding land uses to the north are public, semi-public. To the south, it's low-density residential. And then to the east and west, it's low-density residential. Zoning designation for this property is RT2. It's the traditional neighborhood single and two-family residence district. and then surrounding zoning to the north, south, east, and west are all RT2. Current site land use is a neighborhood bar. Current area land uses to the north is New Almeria Catholic Schools and the convent. To the south, east, and west is the single and two family residences. Notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and published in the New Ulm Journal. Staff did receive one call regarding the request, and the caller was in support of the application. The purpose of the RT2 Traditional Neighborhood Single and Two Family Residence District is intended to be a low-density residential district which allows for 1 and 2 unit dwellings generally located in a grid development pattern. An RT2 district is not a multiple family or multiple residence district for the purposes of planning and development under our city code or for the purposes of interpretation under any state, federal, local, or other regulation. This bar is considered a legal, non-conforming use in the RT2 zoning district. The applicant is proposing to construct an 18-foot wide by 34-foot long covered patio on the southwest corner of the building towards the west. You can see here in the attachment number 4, that blue area is where they're proposing to have the patio. There is an existing building that was removed in 2020, and the proposed patio will be constructed in roughly the same location. The removed building had dimensions of 14 feet wide by 20 foot long and ran from east to west along the south property line, so just like their proposed patio. The existing building / bar is located approximately 1 foot off the side property line. The patio is proposed to be in line with the existing building, and the required setback for the proposed patio in this zoning district for this use is actually 20 feet. The applicant will be installing a 6-foot-tall solid fence along the south property line from the existing bar building to the storage building located off the alley to the west. So it's this building right here. A fence is a permitted structure in this location. So, for a little more background, the existing building was constructed in 1900 and has always been used for business purposes, both a neighborhood grocery and a neighborhood bar. Till recently, the applicant has been using portable pop-up canopies to provide shade to his patrons outside. These portable canopies have had issues with weather and were not a permanent solution for the applicant. Off-street parking for the business is located on the west side of the building and is surfaced with gravel. The off-street parking can accommodate up to 8 vehicles in that parking area. The applicant has stated that if they were to install the patio at the required setback, that they would lose the off-street parking spaces. So in this attachment here is the off-street parking here. There are some signs on the building that say do not park, so they're expecting people to park in that area, I believe. Let's see. The application provides the following information on the project. One, we are in a residential neighborhood, and I assume that's why there is this ordinance referring to why there's a greater setback. And then 2, we're just putting up a patio, and there was a building there before. Staff's evaluation. This property has been in a business in a residential neighborhood since the building was constructed in 1900. In the past, the south end of the building was a neighborhood grocery, and the north end had historically been a neighborhood bar. The proposed patio will be placed no closer to the property line than the existing building fronting State Street. The applicant is taking into consideration the additional noise that may be generated by the patrons using the patio area and addressing this concern by building a 6-foot-tall solid fence along that south property line. Because the area proposed to be used for the construction of the patio was previously where portable canopies were placed for outdoor seating, staff does not see the applicant's proposal as an increase to the intensity of the use of that property. Okay. We did have 6 attachments. Attachment 1 is the application and site building plan. Attachment 2 is the site location map. Attachment 3 is the zoning map. Attachment 4 is a site map. Attachment 5 are ground level photographs of the property, and then attachment 6 is the finding of facts form. If approved, staff would recommend 5 conditions. 1, that the applicant shall contact the city once stakes have been set for the construction of the patio within the setback area. 2, that the 6-foot tall fence shall be installed along the south property line prior to the use of the patio area by the property owner. And then 3, the applicant shall not use the outdoor patio area outside the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. Number 4, the use shall not be occupied or operated as to create a noise violation of section 8.08 of the city code. And then 5, the applicant shall pay the cost to record the variance with the Brown County Recorder's Office. We did provide 2 motions, 1 to approve the variance with conditions and 1 to deny the variance with conditions. That concludes the staff report, and I believe the applicant is here and is probably eager to answer a whole bunch of questions.
John, before you step away, John, would you, the city recommendation of the number 2, the 6-foot tall fence, just along the south side of the property, so that's just the red line right there, you just,
From the what we're meaning is from the patio area?
correct?
From the patio area or the building, existing building to the
Yes.
garage? Is
To the
that,
gar-
is that?
No,
Al?
actually, it was.
Mr.
Come on up, Al.
Yeah. Please state your name and address.
Al Kapishki, 2526 Southbridge Street, number 24. Now, the fencing was gonna be just for the patio itself, and then we're gonna kind of like do some enclosure there and then come back with some.
Okay, so
way
it's going to
keep-
be along the back side of the
Along the
patio?
whole patio. So
what
like
about
30,
the-
this is 34 feet right here. It's
Okay.
From the edge of the building
And
to
the-
where the end of the patio would be.
And you're not coming along any
No,
other
not
side?
along the whole thing because.
No, my
otherwise
question
then,
is,
like,
the blue box is not going to be fenced in completely, just on the one side?
It'll be fenced in on the back, and then we're gonna enclose this side too, a little differently.
Go north.
But we're doing, going north.
So you got 2 sides,
Two
For
sides?
sure.
Matt,
Yeah,
or I mean, Al is what
and
we're-
we're still trying to work the structure and all that to get the other side too.
Okay. The question that I have regarding that fencing, or lack thereof, there used to be a building there and there was no patio, and I know COVID made things very difficult, and you put the patios, the
In the
little
parking
portable
lot.
buildings in the parking lot, and they were more towards the front than that particular spot, if I recall, but they kind of moved a little bit too. I'd imagine that was due to wind,
Yeah,
but,
because the building was here, and then we'd usually
Right,
start in here and then
right.
go over. But
and if you're using that area for parking, I just have to wonder about the safety of parking by the patio or drinking. I mean, didn't somebody just hit Acre's building again as they put the brakes on? Is there any barrier? Are you putting any barrier to stop a vehicle from running into a load of people sitting on your patio?
we are gonna put like, on the front, we are gonna put
Bollards or
Curb?
not completely like enclosed like the backside, but we are gonna put like
Curb
beams across there. I don't know what we can do with the beams until we get the concrete work
in
done.
front of the cars that park there? I don't want
Most of
to,
the cars usually only come up to
That's the
to
door
not
end.
even here.
okay.
It's like, there's a pretty good portion back there. Most of them never come usually
Okay.
about where that is.
So you're not allowing there's no way that you're going to put lines for people to park, or you're going to put some kind of an indication that people can't park in
Gravel
that
lot.
area?
We've really never had that.
yeah. The lot is 50 feet wide.
Correct?
So, he's talking about a patio of
The patio's 18 feet.
is 18. So
Okay.
that means he's got 32 feet more or less for parking. So a typical parking stall is 20 feet in depth. So he's got enough room to get
Okay.
both uses in that area.
But there's nothing to stop a car from
Nothing to
crossing
s-
that
yeah.
line,
Yeah, right. And
like a
bu-
curb control would,
a curb could do that, or if he put a couple bollards up, or, if he.
yeah.
Right.
There's-
That
there's
was
some
my
different
issue.
options there.
And it's probably reaching, but my concern is people sitting in the patio getting hit.
Run into.
Huh?
Run into.
Yeah,
with the vehicle.
they just redid the front of Acres Building. People hit the gas instead of the brake very often.
Al, could you tell the group, would there be more or less outside seating in the new patio area than what is currently out there right now that you've been running?
Right now, we don't have nothing but, because we were waiting to get this okayed. But usually we'd have, probably be about the same as what
Okay.
we've had, about 3 or 4 tables.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You have music inside, you're not planning on putting music outside in the neighborhood? Okay.
The only question
I had was the one condition is when we got the variance originally for the temporary ones, we were allowed to go to 12, not 9 p.m. That's the only thing I got a little bit of an issue there.
Say that again?
Well, originally when we get the temporary one, we were able to have people out there till close.
Okay. And now,
See, they were proposing until only 9 p.m.
9 PM. Well, I think it's 9 PM in most of them, isn't it?
John can maybe talk to that. That's the city's noise standard requirement, isn't it, John?
Is it 9 or
9 o'clock?
10:30?
No, it's
10?
10 o'clock. We did shorten it by 1 hour, but it is 10 o'clock. There's noise restrictions in place for outdoor noise.
Because of the because it's in a residential area, or what is the
That's citywide.
Right.
9 o'clock is 10 o'clock is
10
citywide?
o'clock on weekdays, 9 o'clock on the weekends.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm just,
Okay. All right.
guess my question, when this comes to council, I mean, when we had the temporary structures, I believe we had to have fencing in place for the alcohol.
Yep.
Was that correct, Al? Is there anything that's going to be gated? That's not on the action here tonight, but probably we'll be asking that at council.
Yeah, that's why we are thinking about like doing like on the side and the front of putting like beams across.
Sure.
And only allowing just the access, which would literally come right off the bar.
Right off the bar.
the back door.
Okay.
Be your access there.
Okay.
Can I ask why that's different from the people downtown that have outside seating in the bars on the sidewalk?
The outside seating, if I'm correct, is limited to the first 4 feet. And then I believe it's outlined that they're supposed to have a defined area,
Okay.
that was going to be color coordinated to be painted on the
Okay.
ground or some sort of fencing.
I see line. I'm sorry.
In
I
those
just-
capacities. But it was supposed to be confined to that 4 feet, so they're not
All
going
right.
beyond that point. But like in this particular case, when we granted, we just asked for some sort of fencing, so the alcohol is not being carried out, out to the sidewalks.
Thank you. Yeah. Are there any other questions for Mr. Kapinski?
Just one comment. Is it necessary to have a condition regarding compliance with the city's alcohol and liquor requirements, or?
That's an option.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to apply for that afterwards.
Yep.
Once everything's done. That's all.
Yeah, so one condition could be that the property owner or applicant is in compliance with all city liquor regulations. And he's aware of that.
You did not list it as your recommended condition?
Nope,
Or
but-
are you,
No, but that could be added.
that can be added? All right.
Redundant, since he's already running the establishment and has to already comply with those.
Well,
Rules?
with the expansion, he'll have to go and visit Janine in finance again to get that amended.
I see.
Yeah, she talked.
Does that go with like the new license, the new liquor license? Is that what you're saying? Why
Yeah,
that goes with-
we can,
So
yeah,
the
she
new-
said
the
we can
new-
amend it after we get everything
And we have
in place as it's going.
and we have licensing coming up here for July 1, so it's probably pretty good timing.
Thank you for your patience.
Could I ask one clarification?
Yes.
We had a condition for the fence basically from the end of the existing bar all the way to the garage in the back. And the applicant has suggested to have basically enclose that patio on two sides, both the south side and then it would be the west side. And I just, I didn't know if there was a conclusion on that or not, but.
I thought that was,
I found it acceptable.
I thought it was understood.
Because that'll affect like snow removal, 'cause a lot of times they push it up that hill towards the way back, so.
Are you asking whether is the city stating that this wants a fence to go all the way to the back, or is that your question?
What I'm asking is if you want to change that condition to say that he needs to enclose that patio on two sides, the south and the west side.
Because it currently states all the way to the garage. Yes, okay, understood.
Okay.
I guess I'm not clear either on the 9 PM.
Okay, you're saying you're saying on condition 2, a 6-foot tall fence shall be installed along the south property line prior to the patio area
No,
for use of prior to use
saying
of the
the
patio
south.
area, but we're just saying to the edge of the patio and the west side. That would be the alteration to condition 2. Not the entire south side of the property, just the limited to the patio area. To alter, so if the motion is made with conditions, that would have to be presented as part of the conditions. Along with, did you have any other, was there another condition with the change to the no?
I think Kate was trying to talk about
Right.
number 3.
Yeah, I guess
the
I'm not clear why
Oh, on the time.
the time is different for this establishment versus other establishments. Because I thought I heard you say it was 10 PM?
Well, the difference is that, three sides of this establishment has residential houses, around it, whereas, this is a neighborhood bar, which is different than downtown bar, I guess.
Right. Well, and have there been problems that we're aware of?
I don't know.
No
Yeah.
one called in to object, one called in to support.
And I see, where this is located is on the back of the lot. There's nothing across the street, except when the schools and one house to the north or to the south. I guess I don't understand. I don't know that we have a reason to give a different time for this establishment.
That's why I questioned the time also, because I know that, like, patios downtown put music out on the patio. That was my question about the music. They weren't planning on that. That goes till 10 or 10:30, and you can hear it for blocks on the weekend or the weekday. So why would we restrict?
Yeah, I guess I didn't know of a reason, so I just wanted to call that out.
So
I'd suggest it should be 10.
But the one thing with that condition is we normally, when we used to get our temporary one, are we allowed people out there till close, or is it just the noise thing? Or is it-
10.
Good
We're allowed
question.
people out there till, oh, okay, well, or how does that work? Because we were allowed that
Sure.
previous 3 years.
There's
How
kind
long-
of two things here. One is they have to comply with the city noise ordinance, which that has the 10 o'clock
Yeah.
noise restriction on the weekdays, 9 on the weekends. And then the other thing was a staff recommendation to have the patio not be used past 9 PM. So that was, that's just our recommendation. So,
So we, as the group, could make an amendment to approve for it to go to 10. Their recommending is 9, based upon the residential area.
We could give a recommendation to the council, and then the council could consider it.
Correct.
Any further
Well, if I
discussion?
just wanted to clarify, did you say you could go till 12 previously?
Close.
No, when we had the temporary ones, we were allowed to one.
Till
That we
one.
could have people out there, then we had to get them out of there too, just like normal, just like when we normally close. Everyone's gotta leave at the same. And we've never had anyone call on us, and we've never had issues. Most people are really good about it.
And those were just easy
Yeah,
up
those were
awnings. wide-
carports. No, literally,
car-
they were
Right,
carports.
just wide open, right. And this has at least some sort
we've
of
been doing that.
noise mitigation, it's gonna have a roof. So, before we get Al off, or out of there, so what is your plan for the actual site itself, in terms of, I heard you say concrete, so,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
this is
we-
gonna
we-
be
we took out
covered.
the old existing slab.
Yep,
And then we got some work that still has to get done here, and we're probably gonna redo all around here.
so you're
So
gonna.
some of the extra stuff went up, like, kinda went up to here. So we're gonna re-concrete everything there.
Okay, so it's gonna be
And
a
then,
concrete slab,
yep, and then fence along the two sides, and then we're gonna
Fence.
do like an awning style structure, just a covering, not like a full out building.
is it gonna be
It'll be, I think we're just
pitched
gonna
or
keep
like-
it, I think we're gonna keep it open on towards the parking lot and have it come off the back. Well, we haven't completely got like the exact what we can do, because then we found out when we were gonna try that we had to get a variance.
okay.
Been working with.
Anyone else with questions for Mr. Kopechki or the city? If not, thank you, and I am closing the public hearing portion of the meeting and moving on to the fact-finding sheet. Question 1, is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the city's zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Existing,
It's an exist,
right.
Existing business.
Is the variance request consistent with the city's comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Yes. Does the proposal put the property to use in a reasonable manner not permitted by the city's zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Dave, stop me if you need a why. Thank you. Does the proposal impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties, unreasonable increase in congestion of public streets, increase the danger of fire, substantially diminish property values, and will not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to the property or improvements in the zoning district or neighborhood in which a property is located?
No.
No. Are the physical surroundings, lot size, and or shape, topography, water conditions, or other physical conditions unique to the property?
Yes.
so
Yes.
yes. And what's unique about this is that given the current limitations and requirements by zoning, or the fact that the property is as old as it is, it would make it restricts it from being able to fall within the current requests or requirements. That's why they're requesting so,
Right.
and yeah, it's just given its time and age, and it's always public use or the service it's provided. That's what's unique.
And it's built on the property line.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it has been, it's already existing on the property line. The rest of it is, yeah.
Okay. And everyone is in agreement with that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm trying to remember which question. I'm on 6 now, okay. Unique circumstances related to the property do not generally apply to other properties or buildings in the same zoning district or vicinity.
Yes.
Yes.
Were the unique circumstances related to the Unique circumstances related to the property were not created by the owner of the property.
No.
Yes.
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 Will the variance alter the essential character of the locality?
No.
No.
Question 9, the variance requests minimum amount necessary to eliminate the practical difficulties.
Yes.
Do economic considerations allow not,
Alone.
For the reasonable, no.
alone, not allow for the reasonable, I'm sorry, allow for the reasonable use of the property?
No.
No. Thank you all for helping me through that.
I've been trying to follow. Number 6, circumstances related to the property do not generally apply to other properties or buildings in the same zoning district or vicinity. So your answer to that was?
I think it was the same, it gave it the same answer as yes, as,
So it's a yes answer.
It was a
Correct.
yes answer.
yes.
And given that is that the building and the establishment is already located on the property line.
Right.
And so, when you look at even the visual and the site maps, other properties in the area, are generally not located right on property. They're in the middle and they have the ability to have setbacks. This property does not allow for that. That's what's unique about it, is its age. And
Did you get your answer, Dave?
Well, I wanted to make sure the answer was yes.
Yes,
Correct.
yes. Those are the questions I was waiting for a stop on. All right. At this point, I'd like to request a motion. There were 2 motions recommended, or for us to choose from, and there were conditions. If there were any alterations to the conditions, please state them.
I'll make a motion to approve, to recommend approval with conditions, the variance requested by Yaka LLC, DBA Smiley's Tavern on behalf of Al and Matt Kapishki to allow the construction of an 18-foot wide by 34-foot long covered patio, 1 foot from the side property line as described in site plan, provided with the variance application on property legally described as Lot 7, Block 110, north of Center Street. And with the recommendation I would further is that the 6-foot tall fence installed along the south property line on the back of that covered patio would wrap around to the west as well, but not have to be extended all the way to the
Garage.
to the garage on the property.
Anything about the time?
And
Number 3.
I would further, being consistent with throughout the city of New Ulm, is that the hours of operation would be it's 10 p.m. I think we had it said till 10 p.m. on the weekdays, and being consistent with the city, and 9 p.m. I just wanted to be consistent with the rest of the city patio outside. So,
Wait, clarification?
Yeah, I would just like to clarify that a little bit more. That is for that restriction you're discussing right now, or condition, is for them to have patrons out on the patio. The 9-10 o'clock thing we've been discussing all night is related to the noise ordinance.
Right.
Okay, that's in place.
That's already in
regardless.
place.
The allowing people out there past a certain amount of time, that's a decision you all are making.
that we would recommend.
Yeah.
Right.
Wanting the time that patrons are allowed to be on the patio to match the already existing noise ordinance time. Is that what you're saying?
Or do you want
Or do you want to allow them?
to go to 1 o'clock?
Pardon me? Or do you want to allow them to be there until 1 o'clock? Is that your statement?
Well, I think that's what.
That was part of the, that was part of the
I guess
discussion.
that at this point, I would look for support from my fellow commission members relative to how we shape that one, because I know that was,
Can I help out and ask, what are the restricted hours for the patios downtown? Are they bar hours? So,
Correctly stated that during his times of having a temporary permit, that there were also no restriction, that he could have people
Yeah.
out there until closing time.
and he did say his music is inside, it's not coming outside, there is no plan. So I would.
eliminate 3? Is
Elim-
that what you're asking, is to eliminate 3?
Probably would
I
essentially.
think basically that's what we're saying. We want to be
So
consistent.
I would, with my, to eliminate the third recommendation.
And you're okay
Okay.
with 4 and
The
5?
rest of correct, that the rest of the recommendations are applicable.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve with conditions, change to condition 2 on the fence requirement and elimination of the recommended number 3 condition. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Appears before the city council on June 7th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Update on the comprehensive plan.
Okay. The city council accepted your recommendation to retain the firm of Short Elliott Hendrickson, also known as SEH, to provide consulting services for the preparation of a new comprehensive plan and 4 area plans. And this was at their May 3rd meeting. Currently, the contract for their services is under review, and that's kind of where we're at currently. It is the recommendation of the consultant, and I think staff agrees, that there will be established a steering committee that will consist of 12 to 13 members. The membership would be the 7 individuals that are on the Planning Commission, a representative from the PUC, a representative from the Park and Recreation Commission, a representative from MLC, and then a representative, one from Cottonwood Township and one from Milford Township. We also are going to invite a Brown County staff member to participate kind of as a staff member would. So the steering committee, I think the intent is to have them meet once a month. It will be a separate meeting from the Planning Commission's regular meeting date. You know, we tried to coordinate the interviews with the agenda items from the last Planning Commission meeting, and we had some problems doing that. So we think 2 separate meetings is the best way to go. So it's going to kind of, we'll, at some point, once the contract is approved, is we'll have to identify a date and time, and a time of the month. And so there's still 6 of you here. If you have any suggestions as to what works best for you, might as well have a brief conversation about that. I assume Planning Commission meeting is always the last Thursday of the month. So are we looking at something in the middle of the month? Is that preferable than to?
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So time of day, are we, noon hour, early evening, later on, morning?
What about morning?
Yep,
I mean,
that's,
I have no life, so it matters. I'm gonna lean to the people that have jobs and family to
To-
decide.
whatever works for others, I can.
Afternoon, that works best
Not,
for
not
myself.
prior to 8 o'clock, thank you.
No, I agree.
And yeah, 4 o'clock or noon, something like that suits me fine.
If, yeah, because you
4
have a
o'clock.
business.
Or
and-
your 4
Right.
o'clock?
Yeah, 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Would
fine.
that be acceptable to the, okay.
I'm assuming these are reasonably length meetings, and I apologize for tonight, but
Well, no, it's
it's a
nothing.
new
to do
form.
with
It's all
you.
right. We
Yeah.
kinda got the hang of it. I think
Yeah.
once we
Okay.
got the hang of it, we rolled pretty good.
First time doing something
So
new.
these meetings are expected to be about an hour
An
to
hour?
an hour and a half.
Okay, okay.
Fair enough.
So, day of the week.
Not Friday.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, not Friday.
Wednesday,
Agreed.
Thursday? Wednesday or Thursday?
Okay, well, we might do a doodle on that one.
Right.
Okay.
Wednesday
See
or
what we find out.
Thursday.
Okay. The first public event of this process is a kickoff meeting. And that's going to involve city staff, steering committee, and there probably will be others that will be invited as well. City council, whoever can make it, I guess, would be invited. The purpose of the kickoff meeting is to talk about the work plan, the schedule, the deliverables, and by that we mean what kind of product are they going to present us with at the end, roles and responsibilities, and then data acquisition. I expect some of these meetings might be by Zoom, so, and we have those capabilities in this room to be able to handle that. And just to let you know that staff will be conducting probably Zoom meetings with them twice a month, so. They want to communicate fairly closely with us, and I think that's a way to make sure that this progresses in a timely manner.
Okay.
That's it.
Reports, city council decision.
Okay. Chris, did you want to add something about the comp plan?
Yes, real quick, because Ashley's not here. So Ashley had a couple comments and suggestions, and she had met me up in my office prior to the meeting. And I don't disagree with kind of what she was proposing, having some form of community involvement in as part of the steering committee. And so food for thought was putting together kind of a community ambassador group, so representatives from the community that would help us in the outreach efforts and things like that, and having one member from that ambassador group sit on the steering committee. So, you're not having representatives from all the high schools come. They would be part of that ambassador group to outreach to their respective high schools or groups, and then come back to that group, and then have one member, be part of this, so they kind of have a voice is not the right word, but be part of that process, and then can report back to the ambassador. So that way we have extra hands on deck helping us promote in groups that we don't normally reach out to. So again, food for thought on that. I would be in agreement with it because it just helps us with outreach, and then they're part of the steering committee as well. So it'd be kind of the only non-government person per se on the steering committee.
Can that be discussed even at our first planning meeting as to
Yeah.
the whys and wherefores? I mean, I don't want to be forming the planning committee here.
No, it's just food for thought for you
Right.
to think it over.
Thank you.
Again, she's not here to express those opinions right now.
Okay.
So just kind of food for thought. And again, I would be okay with something
Okay.
like that as part of the group. So that's all
Is
I
there
got.
anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, as far as previous council actions, so at the May 3rd meeting, they approved with conditions the variance application of Justin Bernick allowing a 5-foot extension of a deck that was located already 12 inches from the property line. They denied the application of James Sowers and Dean Burdorf. You've heard that previously. They approved the simple lot division of Lot 5, Block 57 south of Center Street that was submitted by Philip Meidel and Ruth Ann Webster. As I mentioned, they awarded the contract to SEH for $98,395. They also had a work session with MSU students. They presented their capstone projects, the engineering students did. There were 3 of them. One was on the Cottonwood Street area. One was on trails from 20th South to Minicom Park, and one was on kind of improvements that need to be to our infrastructure in the future as we expand mostly in a northwestern direction. So, and maybe sometime when we have a short planning commission meeting, I don't know if that's going to be possible, but we could, it's on video and we could, present that to you. At the May 17th meeting, they had a public hearing on the final plat of 20th North Street and North Front Street. That was for the right-of-way, and then they unanimously approved that. And then they approved 2 license agreements for use of the public right-of-way, similar to what's going to happen with the nursing home project. It's going to be a license agreement that allows them to place that roadway in the public right-of-way. One of those was for 20th North Street. There's some garages that have been there for a very, very long time, so rather than moving them, they just allow them to be continue to be located in that spot. If for some reason the city needs to use that right away, we got to move. And then North Valley Street by Black Frost, they want to have a patio, and that's going to extend out into the North Valley Street right away. So, what was it, 80 some feet long? Yeah, is that what it is? 8 feet, 8 feet out.
Where parking stalls used to be along Valley Street there?
On that side,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
One of the previous requirements for that property was that those stalls had to be eliminated anyways. That would conclude my report.
Was there heritage private?
Elwood gave me something. Elwood is reporting from the HPC that the south portion of the Herberger's building was approved for repainting and installation of new windows by the HPC at their last meeting.
Oh, okay. That's not the Vogel portion of the building, it's the other half.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other business?
Dave, are those videos available on the city's site?
Should be.
The work study sessions, no, we have those.
Can you step up, please?
And because although work study sessions are public, we don't put those out live. But we can get those onto YouTube and send you the link so you can watch those, or we
Yeah.
can present them here.
Yeah, I think they'd be really, really good for us to listen to.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing that we have access to is we could give you the presentations that they made at Mankato State, or excuse me, Minnesota State at Mankato, which are a little bit longer, but a little bit more detail provided.
Yeah.
And that might be more interesting, actually.
The one thing I wanted to add about the trail, I mean, they also added access to the Minnesota River too. So they talked about fishing piers, they talked about canoe kayak access, take in, put out locations, camping locations, all that kind of stuff.
Great.
Can they be viewed as part of the comprehensive plan update or ideas in any sort of application there?
Yes, any and all plans that we have, where there's MSU students, previous plans for Cottonwood, the consultant will have access to all of that information
That would be,
when they go through
That
that.
would be great time to air some of that. I mean, I don't want to make the meetings longer, but even snippets of it that are applicable would be good to hear. Okay, is there any other business that we?
Something real quick. I think one of the things that John and I are going to do is kind of go through these findings of fact and maybe try to clean up you know, the language a little bit to make it a little bit more understandable, because sometimes we were dealing with double negatives.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Tough to, what,
Thank you.
you know, what is being
It was
said.
difficult to know when you had to give a serious answer other than yes or no.
Yeah.
And I understand Dave's bit of frustration because I was feeling it myself.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you to poke me when we needed something. Thank you. If nothing else is to come before the commission, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.